Australian airline Qantas says it has suffered a major cyber attack and it's warning, quote, a significant amount of customer data has likely been stolen. 6 million customers had service records on the platform. The compromised data includes customer names, emails, phone numbers, birth dates, and frequent flyer details. Financial information, passport details, and passwords were reportedly not compromised. Qantas says investigations are underway into the extent of the breach after hackers broke into a third-party platform used by its call center. The airline says the system has since been secured and does not impact its safety or operations. And shares of Australia's biggest airline, Qantas Airways, down by more than 3%. Now, let's bring in Charles Carmakal, CTO with Mandiant Consulting and Google Cloud, joining us this evening. And Charles, good evening to you. So up to 6 million customer records may have been compromised in this breach. So how damaging is this for Qantas in terms of reputation, customer trust, and regulatory fallout?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, a lot of organizations deal with cybersecurity events where threat actors have the ability to steal sensitive data from organizations that impact individuals. And really what's going on right now is across the airline industry, particularly in the United States, there have been a number of attacks against other airline organizations by a particular threat actor that's known to steal data and cause disruption to victim organizations. Now, fortunately, we haven't seen any real impact to the ability to fly and travel, but that's something that everybody's keeping a very close eye on right now.
Mm-hmm. So if we talk about this incident alone, could this spill into Qantas flight operations or future business prospects?
Based on what Qantas is saying right now, and keep in mind, they're very early on into their investigation, they seem to think that the incident might be contained and limited to a third-party application, which typically how airliners are architected. That may not have any material impact on their ability to take off planes and to transport passengers.
Mm-hmm. Well, Charles, you've mentioned that cyber attacks targeting airlines are clearly on the rise, and we've heard the Hawaiian airline cyber attack just last week. So why does aviation sector remain such a high-value target and so vulnerable to these threats?
Yeah, so there's a group that's known as Scattered Spider, which is a group of Western English-speaking threat actors that tend to identify a particular industry sector, and they target a lot of high-profile organizations within that sector over the course of, say, 2 to 3 weeks. We saw them start attacks against UK-based retailers about 2 months ago. Then they moved on to US-based retailers. Then they moved on to insurance companies. And now they seem to be focused on airline organizations in North America. And it's possible they may have expanded their targeting to Australian organizations and other global airline organizations. But again, it's very early, and it's too early to tell if Qantas was compromised by the Scatter Spider group.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've mentioned basically the airlines in the US and also in Australia, like Qantas. So could we see perhaps across other airlines and broader aviation sector, being hit by this kind of, cyber attacks in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a variety of threat actors that choose to compromise airline organizations. We just happen to be seeing Western English-speaking threat actors that are motivated by both fame and making money, targeting a number of US-based airline organizations. Outside of this threat actor, there are a number of other state-sponsored threat actors that have been compromising airlines for many years. And they're interested in understanding who is flying on what airline, what locations people are flying to, particularly those individuals that are of interest to particular governments.
So in that sense, what concrete steps can airlines and regulators take, both short and long term, to strengthen cybersecurity and contain the risks going forward?
Yeah, the number one issue that airliners are dealing with right now is that Western and English-speaking individuals are calling up the help desk of these airline organizations, and they're pretending to be employees or contractors, and they're saying that they've forgotten their password or they've gotten a new telephone number, and they're trying to convince the help desk to reset a password or to add a new telephone number to somebody's account so that they could generate a new password through a password reset process. So strengthening the identity verification controls for the help desk will reduce the attack surface and one of the major ways in which this adversary is gaining access to airline organizations today.
Well, besides that, I want to add one more question on this topic. So you've mentioned about what airlines and passengers can do, and how about countries? I mean, especially for aviation hub like Singapore, those countries can do to help prevent this kind of cyber attacks from happening in the future.
Yeah, so everybody needs to improve the way that they identify individuals before they reset passwords. That's number one. Number two, there are a number of technical things that the adversary does once they initially gain access to the organization's IT environment. And a lot of the actions that the threat actor takes are actually incredibly noisy. So there are actually a lot of opportunities for victim organizations to determine that they've been compromised and to kick the attackers out early on in the attack lifecycle, ideally before the threat actor has the ability to steal data from the organization or disrupt business operations. And so a lot of the airline organizations that have dealt with cybersecurity events over the past few weeks have been sharing learnings and knowledge with other airline organizations. And so my ask to the community is for us to continue to share information so that we can continue to better defend against today's modern attacks.
All right, Charles, thank you so much indeed for your analysis. Charles Carmakal, Chief Technology Officer of Mandiant Consulting.